World War One was not only a battle of trenches, artillery, and poison gas. It was a war fought not just for territories, but for information. Never before had intelligence played such an essential role. Never before could a spy's notebook, an encrypted telegram, or an intercepted document alter the course of entire operation, save thousands of lives, or just as easily doom them. Beneath the familiar stories of battles, another war unfolded. An invisible war, a war of shadows, a war of codes, where spies were not merely scouts but hunters of secrets, pawns in global politics, double dealers and adventurers ready to risk their lives for a few lines written on paper. And among all the agents operating during those years, one figure became almost mythical: Mata Hari, a woman whose name became synonymous with mystery, seduction, and tragedy. But her story is only one thread in a vast web of clandestine games, political intrigue, and technological breakthroughs in intelligence that shaped the outcome of the First World War. To understand how spies of that era worked, we must enter a world of codes, double agents, and ingenious covert operations, many of which became known only decades later. In the early 20th century, intelligence was only beginning to evolve into a true professional system. Before then, spies were hired sporadically and given isolated tasks. But once the war began, something new appeared: centralized intelligence agencies capable of operating as unified machines. In Germany, Britain, Russia, and France, the organizations that would later become some of the world's most famous secret services were taking shape. The British Secret Intelligence Service, MMI6, was essentially born on the eve of the war. Germany's military intelligence apparatus, led by the Abwehr, went into action in the very first days. Russian counterintelligence underwent reforms. French services built networks of agents across Europe. Their main mission was simple: obtain information about enemy plans before the enemy could strike. That meant recruiting operatives in ports, factories, ministries, armies, banks. It meant mass producing fake documents, intercepting mail, breaking into diplomatic pouches, tapping telephone lines. Everything became a weapon. But the most valuable asset of all was a human agent with access to high ranking officers or officials. One confidential conversation could be worth more than thousands of soldiers. This is the logic in which the figure of Mata Hari appears: a woman who became a legend before she became a spy, and a spy before she became a victim. Mata Hari Margarita Gertruida Sell was not a professional agent. She was a dancer, a performer, a woman who built her own myth. Her exotic dances, her crafted persona of an Eastern priestess of love and mystery, captivated Europe. She moved in circles of officers, diplomats, aristocrats. She knew those who commanded armies. She dined with those who signed secret orders. And that is precisely why intelligence services across Europe saw in her an ideal target for recruitment. Her connections, her fame, her ability to charm men. This made her a perfect tool for gathering information. But the key question remains: was she truly a spy, or did she become a convenient victim of political games? This debate continues to this day. Still, it was around Mata Hari that one of the most dramatic espionage stories of the First World War unfolded. In 1916, France was going through one of the darkest phases of the war. The Battle of Verdun had drained the army. The nation was searching for culprits. Retreats were explained by sabotage, treason, command incompetence. Against this background, French counterintelligence sought sensational revelations. When Meta Hari's name appeared in a few reports as a woman meeting with German officers, suspicion immediately fell on her. She was arrested, accused of espionage, and turned into a symbol, a supposed traitor whose execution would boost morale. Yet the actual evidence against her was extremely thin. Historians still argue, was she truly a spy, or did she become a scapegoat, an easy target for a desperate government? Her case remains one of the great espionage tragedies of the era. But Mata Hari is only one piece of a massive intelligence puzzle. Elsewhere in Europe, something was happening that would ultimately change the course of the war, far more than any single agent in the field. It was the story of the Zimmermann telegram. This event, one of the greatest triumphs of British intelligence, demonstrated how cause and crypt analysis could be stronger than artillery. In early 1917, Germany sent a telegram to its envoy in Mexico proposing the following: if Mexico joined the war on Germany's side and attacked the United States, Germany would help it reclaim lost territories, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. The Germans were confident the message was secure. It was sent through diplomatic channels, but the British had long been secretly tapping undersea telegraph lines and possessed a unique cryptographic unit, Room 40, a team of mathematicians, linguists, and code breakers capable of reading German encrypted traffic. It was they who intercepted and decrypted the Zimmermann telegram. When the United States learned its contents, entering the war became inevitable. One document, one code, shifted the global balance of power. This was the moment intelligence proved itself to be an invisible artillery, capable of determining the fate of nations. To understand how typical spies of the era worked, we must look at their everyday reality. Most were not professionals, but ordinary people, waitresses, railway workers, postal clerks, telegraph operators, couriers, drivers, mechanics, merchants. They were the ones who collected information, observing ship movements, memorizing gun calibers, quietly moving letters between postal bags. They didn't wear cloaks and hats or carry silencers. Their main tools were attentiveness and invisibility. In France, entire networks of women, nurses, shopkeepers, factory workers, collected intelligence simply by listening to wounded soldiers. In Germany, agents operated in neutral countries, like the Netherlands and Switzerland, monitoring diplomacy, intercepting mail, recruiting refugees and exiles. Russia's intelligence maintained offices in Stockholm, Copenhagen, and London. This formed a vast map of shadow warfare. Double agents played a particularly dangerous role. Many worked for two services at once, often without realizing they were being used as expendable pawns. Mata Hari herself likely became entangled in this web of conflicting loyalties, but obtaining information was often easier than delivering it. Postal services were heavily monitored, telegrams intercepted, phones tapped. Agents therefore used codes and hidden messages. Secret inks were developed that became visible only with heat. Letters were written inside other letters between the lines. Microphotographs, tiny images the size of a dot, containing entire pages of text, were hidden inside buttons, rings, toothpaste tubes. The method of duplicate letters appeared, two identical letters sent by different routes, so that even if one was intercepted, the other might get through. These techniques became the foundation of modern espionage. Just as important as spies were the counterintelligence services, the hunters. France created one of the harshest surveillance systems. Germany fought aggressively against Russian and British spies. Britain formed MI5, the internal shield of the nation. MI5 became one of the most effective counterintelligence services in Europe, catching agents at ports and border crossings. In the first months of the war, MI5 almost completely destroyed Germany's spy network in Britain. Only a few remained, and those became double agents. On the Eastern Front, intelligence battles were just as fierce. Russia had agents in Galicia, Prussia, and the Ottoman Empire. Germany worked through Finland and Sweden. The Ottomans recruited Caucasian and Arab tribes. Russian spies disguised themselves as merchants, priests, doctors. Germans, engineers, geographers, journalists. In this era emerged a new profession, the spy photographer. Miniature cameras allowed operatives to photograph bridges, airfields, railways. These images became precious documents, sometimes more important than any written report. Analysts also played a crucial role, experts capable of piecing together fragments into a bigger picture. For example, British analysts noticed that Germany suddenly began purchasing huge amounts of coal from Norway, harmless at first glance, but paired with reports of German submarines appearing in new locations. It indicated a shift in Germany's naval strategy. This small detail helped Britain prepare for U-boat attacks in advance. Meanwhile, German analysts attempted to understand how British ships always appeared in unexpected places, leading them to suspect a British radio interception service, though they never discovered its true capabilities. Beyond Europe, spies operated worldwide. In the United States, German agents tried to sabotage American supplies. In 1916, the Black Tom explosion, an act of German sabotage, shook New York so violently that windows shattered in Manhattan and the Statue of Liberty's torch was damaged beyond repair. In Asia, Japanese intelligence acted against Germany and Russia. In China, all sides ran espionage operations simultaneously. In the Middle East, British intelligence played a key role in supporting the Arab revolt. This was the world of T.E. Lawrence, Lawrence of Arabia, who combined the skills of a spy, strategist, diplomat, and cultural expert. All this shows how World War I turned espionage into an independent front. But let us return to Mata Hari, the tragic icon of that invisible front. Her trial was harsh and biased, her lawyer inexperienced. The court demanded a symbol, not justice. The press portrayed her as a fatal woman who sold France, yet her actual role was minimal. She had no access to secret documents. She never infiltrated headquarters. She was a socialite surrounded by rumors. France needed a villain and found one in a woman who couldn't defend herself. She was executed in October 1917. Decades later, historians acknowledged that the evidence was profoundly insufficient. Mata Hari was likely a victim of fear, propaganda, and political necessity. Behind her story lies the fate of thousands of unknown operatives. Most left no trace in newspapers. Most never became legends. But they, telegraph operators, station workers, port employees, nurses, code breakers, shaped the course of the war. World War I was the moment when espionage ceased to be a romantic adventure. It became a science, a strategy, an essential element of modern warfare. And in this shadow world of fear and secrecy, the first prototypes of modern intelligence agencies were born. Modern cryptography emerged here. The earliest forms of cyber warfare began here. Every later conflict, World War II, the Cold War, the modern intelligence landscape, grew out of the lessons of that first global intelligence war. Today, looking back, we can say between 1914 and 1918, a new type of warfare emerged: information warfare. A war where a telegram could be stronger than a bomb, a code more dangerous than a bayonet, words whispered in a corridor more influential than an entire battalion. And this is why the spies of the First World War, from Mata Hari to the code breakers of Room 40, from the saboteurs of Black Tom to Lawrence of Arabia, left such a deep mark on history. They were the first soldiers of the invisible front, a front that still exists today.